Hey everyone, it's Skylar. Welcome back to my channel. We're on to day 8 of 31 days of November challenge month, and yes, I'm still behind by a couple of days. So we're now on a movie from 1977, and the movie I chosen release date was on the 17th of June 1977. And of course, for 1973, I did do The Exorcist. So I've decided I'm doing the sequel to The Exorcist, which is Exorcist 2, the Heretic. So yep. So directed by John Borman, produced by John Borman and Richard Lederer, written by William Goodhart and Roscoe Pallenberg, based on the characters from William Peter Blatty's book of the same name. Starring, of course, Linda Blair as Regan McNeil, Richard Burton as Father Philip Lamont, Louise Fletcher as Dr. Jean Tuskin, match from Sindow is Father Lancaster Merrin, Kitty Wynn as Sharon Spencer, Paul Henreid as the Cardinal, James Earl Jones as Kokomo, Ned Beatty as Edwards, Joey Green as young Kokomo, Belinda Beatty as Liz, Barbara Kagan as Mrs. Fowler, Ken Reynolds as Abbott, Dana Plato as Sandra Philo, Karen Knapp as the voices Pazuzu. Music by Ennio Morricone, cinematography by William A. Franca, edited by Tom Priestley, and of course it was distributed by Warner Brothers. Movie starts off with the priest walking, and he stands around some people and reads from the Bible, and someone is possessed, then performs an exorcism on them. Then they shout the priest. Then the priest tells them to be quiet, and the girl goes crazy and sets herself on fire and burns to death. Then Regan begins to tap dance on stage, and then a lady is shouting Debbie as the girl is deaf. Then Regan goes and sees a boy hitting a girl with a teddy until she passes pass out. Then Regan is lying down and talks about things including her mum and dad, and tells the lady about the bad dreams and nightmare, and says about a machine, and then the doctor says about a machine that they put her under hypnosis, and says you're not ready for it and that you're the doctor, you must explain. Then priests are walking along and talking away, then opens the door and walks in to see the Cardinal and talks some more about Father Merritt, and asks Philip to conduct this investigation and reluctantly agrees. Then Philip watches over people and sees Regan, then sees her doctor, and then Regan and the doctor thinks that the priest is talking about her. Then the priest and the doctor are talking about Regan and says you're up against evil, and Regan interrupts saying that she wants to be under hypnosis, and it ends up starting tomorrow. Then Regan and Sharon talk at dinner, and Regan pretends to bend the spoon. Then the next day Regan is put under hypnosis and is told to relax her arms, and is told to relax, then look at the light and to let herself go. Then the doctor listens to her thoughts and starts to ask her some questions about her past. Then Regan tells Jean to relax and hear her tone, and another person is asking some questions. And then Father Lamont asks Regan some questions about the other priest and asks Regan what she is doing. Then Regan stops. Then the priest goes under and finds Dr. Tuscan, then sees Regan and the priest from her childhood, and Regan asks to bring her back, and they say, "In God's name," and tells her that she will not remember, and then she comes back into the room, but Regan and the doctor don't remember, but the priest does. Then Dr. Tuscan looks at Regan's drawing picture with a girl and a boy. Then the priest asks the doctor if she's okay, then tells her that the priest was killed. Then the doctor tries to brush it off and says it will wait until tomorrow. It'll have to wait until tomorrow. And then Regan gives the priest a picture and then shows the doctor the picture and tries to find Regan, but sees a fire somewhere and tries to extinguish it, and sees a doll. Then the doctor sees the picture again, and the priest is sweating and extinguishes the fire. Then everyone is evacuated. Then the priest and the doctor are talking more about the machine and says that Regan must be helped. So she reluctantly agrees to help, but is worried that Regan will remember and go into shock. Then Regan tries to sleep, but voices are calling her name. Then Regan starts to dream and then wakes up and then starts to get out of her bed and sleepwalks out of her room, and then wakes up at the ledge of an apartment and then screams, and then Sharon looks for her and Regan says that the doves woke her up. Then Sharon says she has to go to Washington and meet up with the priest, and goes to Regan's childhood home and go inside the house and talk inside the house and look around some more. And Sharon says his name, then talks more about Father Merrin, and Philip asks if Father Merrin was afraid, then goes upstairs and talks some more and shows Philip Regan's childhood bedroom and tells her she should try praying. So Philip goes to the door, opens it and enters, looks at the bed and does the sign of the cross and begins to pray. Then the doctor talks to some patients and then talks to Philip again and asks the doctor if she has any children. She says 2, and then talks some more, and then sees Regan and the doctor and the priest are put under hypnosis. Regan talked under hypnosis to Philip the priest. Then he is Pazuzu, and Regan asks to call her by her dream name, which is Pazuzu, and says Pazuzu can't escape this sacred place, and asks Pazuzu some more questions, and Pazuzu answers them. Then Regan comes out the hypnosis and starts to remember little bits. Then this priest tells the doctor some stuff. Then Regan looks around and talks to a little girl and asks if she's waiting for Dr. Tuscan, and then gets said that she's autistic, and Regan can hear her and tells her that she was possessed by a demon, but the demon has gone now. So the little goes home to talk to her father, and Regan helped the little girl out. Then Regan asks to help out others. So Sharon comes and takes Regan home. Then the priest and doctor argue about Regan. Then the priest leaves. Then the priest goes to the museum and sees Regan, and the priest says that the doctor told him not to talk to Regan, but they both talk some more. As they look around the museum, and Regan finally admits to knowing Father Merritt, and they talk about Pazuzu some more, and says another name called Kakumo. Then the priest talks to someone and asks to go to Africa to see Kakumo to destroy Pazuzu, but the other priest doesn't want him to do it. Meanwhile, Regan is sleepwalking again and sees the same dream as she did under hypnosis. Then the doctor goes and sees Regan, but she's on the roof and says, "I wish you can help Father Lamont," but the doctor doesn't know what to do, and Regan won't come in because she can't go into sync. Then the priest is in Africa and asks about the priest and Kakumo, and shows the priest where they died. Then the priest goes down and shows them the reason is in the Then Regan is in a show tap dancing and Sharon watches her. Then the priest is showing the people about the rock who Pazuzu killed and says it's difficult to explain, and was under hypnosis, and tells him to wait, but he walks away. Then throws a rock on his head and throws some more rocks, and Regan feels the effects of what the priest was enduring. Basically that he was getting the rocks thrown at him. Then Regan gets a needle and goes to sleep and says, "You're trying to kill my new soul," and the doctor walks away. Then the priest talks to a nun, and the nun runs out to a man carrying a cross, and the priest talks to a man called Edward, and the priest goes with Edward on a plane, and they walk down some narrow streets, and people are staring at him, and asks a man if he knows someone called Kakumo, but says no. Then Regan is sleeping with other patients. Then the priest is still asking for Kakumo and gets taken by a lot of men up some stairs and then walks away. Then Regan can't sleep and takes a drip out of her arm, and then the priest is still walking around looking for Kakumo and says he must find Kakumo and needs help, and calls for Regan and calls her again by her dream name Pazuzu and says Kakumo and repeats his name over and over again, and goes down a passageway and finds Kakumo and talks to Kakumo and says he will do anything to help Regan. And Kakumo asks to step out of despair and does it by standing on spikes. Then talks to Kakumo at his office and talks about Pazuzu the demon and the locusts, and shows them there's different forms, and talks more about them, saying what they touch they turn it evil, and shows him a good locust and want them all to be like the good locust. Then Regan walks out of that room and outside. Then the doctor's phone rings but doesn't answer, but Sharon answers hers and tells her that Regan has escaped. Then the door goes and it's the priest back from Africa, but Sharon tells him to leave. Regan goes to the museum and sits and waits, and the priest finds her there and talks to her and tells her that she needs to fight the good and evil in her. Then Sharon and the doctor go and find her. Then Regan and the priest go to an apartment and goes under hypnosis and talks to each other under hypnosis. Sees the demon Pazuzu and Father Merrin, and sees what Father Merrin has done. Then sees other things. Then they leave the house. Then the doctor and Sharon are at the office, and Regan and Philip are walking. Then Regan calls the doctor and that he's going to the station and that they are going to Washington, back to her childhood home. So Regan goes on the train and looks for Father Lamont. finds him and sits on the train together. Then the doctor and Sharon are driving, then stops the car, checks the man over. Meanwhile, Father Lamont feels that they're getting closer. Then the doctor and Sharon hit turbulence on the plane. Then back on the train, Regan tells Father Lamont not to be lost to her. Then the turbulence stops on the plane. Then Father Lamont tells Regan about the good locust. Then the doctor and Sharon go in a taxi to Regan's childhood house. Then Father Lamont and Regan go on the bus to Regan's childhood home, but first goes up the steps and goes into the house. Then bursts into the house, and the doctor and Sharon follow in a taxi. Then Father Lamont goes upstairs into Regan's childhood bedroom, and a swarm of locusts goes after Father Lamont. Then Regan goes up the stairs and sees Father Lamont and points to Regan's bathroom. Sharon refuses to let the doctor out and tells Sharon the name of Pazuzu. Then Regan goes into the bedroom and gets frightened. Then Sharon refuses to let the doctor in yet again. Then Regan sees the Pazuzu and joins Pazuzu and tries to kill her. Then the priest tries to kill the good Regan. Then Sharon is set on fire, and good Regan talks about good reason, but Pazuzu still has a hold on the priest, and then hugs the good Regan and tells him that to tear out her evil heart, then strangles Pazuzu. The doctor still can't get in and calls out for help, then sees a locust going towards the house. Then good Regan looks on while Pazuzu and the priest are fighting. Then the house is falling to pieces and the priest is still on the bed and Regan is clinging. Then Pazuzu's heart gets ripped out and falls down the stairs. Then Regan climbs up and gets the locust away from her and it stops. Then Regan looks for the priest and finds the doctor and Sharon's burnt remains. Then the priest blesses Sharon and Sharon says Regan's name and passes away. Then the priest talks to the doctor and goes over to Regan. And the doctor apologises to her and hugs the priest and tells him to take care of Regan and walks away with Regan. And the doctor looks back, and then the police ask the doctor if she's okay, and then the screen goes completely white. The end. My thoughts on The Exorcist Part 2. Right, I just want to say this quickly before I will tell you my thoughts. Now, there's been mixed reviews about this. Some people love it, some people hate it. Now, I'm going to say something, right, that I'll be honest with you. I like the first one, and I do like the second one in parts. I don't like the story about Africa, because I think it just takes it away from what the film was originally about in the first place. But the ending, I really liked it, where it was a struggle between normal Regan and Pazuzu Regan, but I made it easy saying good Regan and evil Regan, aka Pazuzu Regan. I liked that concept, and I liked how the Pazuzu Regan in this one, I liked how they done the work for the demon on that, and I liked the whole plot at the beginning where Regan's still continuing her treatment and stuff like that. I like that bit. I just don't like where it was like going into Africa, and I felt it didn't make much sense. But when it was like back onto like Regan's story and she's grown up and the priest and that she's got a doctor and that. The only thing that I'm gutted about in the whole part of Exorcist is, where was Reagan's mum in all of this? I don't get how she was looked after by like the nanny or whatever you want to call it. I don't get her, like, how she was looked after by her. But other than that, I enjoyed the whole concept of, like, Reagan. She's trying to become a normal young adult, and she's trying to get things sorted out in her life and stuff like that. I like that concept of it, and the music wasn't too bad, but I actually preferred Tubular Bells, which is from the original. But other than that, there was parts that I enjoyed and there was parts that I didn't enjoy, but I will say this, I do prefer the first over the second, only because of the African parts in the second bit. But other than that, I did enjoy the film. So, rating at The Exorcist Part 2, the heresy, or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to halve it down. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Because I enjoyed parts of it, and there was parts that I didn't enjoy, so it was halfway there. But I actually preferred the first Exorcist and the second, even though I liked the second, but not as good as the first. But that's my opinion. I did like it, but not as much as what I've expected. That's why I had to explain a few things. So yeah, that was day 8 sorted. You'll see day 9 soon. So of course, stay gaudy, have unpleasant dreams, and I'll see you soon. Ta-ta for now. Bye.